You ever see one of those dealership ads or cycle trailer listings where the bike just looks glorious? Paint's immaculate, low miles, and the tag says something like $69.99, today only. And for a split second, you're like, wait, that's like $170 a month. I can totally afford a motorcycle. Heck, I might buy two. And that, my friends, is how it starts. The dream, the justifications, the financial trapdoor hidden behind a pile of throttle lust. See, what they don't tell you, my friends, is that that sticker price, that's just the cover charge. That gets you in the door. Yeah, the real costs, they show up like unwanted guests at a backyard barbecue. Insurance that spikes because you're high risk, and gear that costs more than your prom tux. Plus tires that wear out faster than a toddler's socks. And don't even get me started on that one more mod that you swore would be the last. But hey, I am not here to scare you off. I love my bikes. They keep me sane and honestly make me look cooler than I actually am. I just wish somebody had sat me down when I bought a bike and said, hey look, you're not just buying a bike, you're purchasing an entire ecosystem. So let's break down the real price of motorcycle ownership. Not just the number on the dealership tag, but all the stuff that sneaks up on you later. All right, let's talk about that big number on the tag. You know, the one that made you think, heck yeah, I can afford a motorcycle. Yeah, that one. That's not the final bill. That's the marketing number. That's the hook. Because once you say, I want that one, you're not walking out of the dealership with a $69.99 bike. You're walking out with a financial side quest. That bike seems budget friendly, but now let's add a $700 destination charge. That's the cost the manufacturer charges the dealership to ship it to them. And you better believe they're gonna pass it on to you. A $600 assembly and prep fee, oh yeah, they charge you to put it together. And a $500 dealer documentation fee, because doing paperwork costs money now, apparently. Honestly, that's just padded profit, but you're not gonna get away from it in most cases. Then sales tax plus title, license, registration. Suddenly that $69.99 bike is a $9,500 investment. And before you've even thrown a leg over it. Used bikes may avoid some of the fees, but not all of them. Now maybe you're thinking, I'll just finance it. What's the harm? Okay, let's say you get 8.99% financing over 5 years, which is pretty average. By the end of those 5 years, now you've paid $11,800 in total. That's $2,300 in interest just for the privilege of paying for it slowly. And if you didn't put any money down, you're upside down the minute you roll off the lot. And heaven help you if you finance gear and accessories on top of the bike, because motorcycles depreciate fast. If you wreck it, sell it early, or try to trade it in, you may have to pay to get rid of your own bike. Yes, that's a thing. There's a saying among riders, dress for the slide, not for the ride. It's cute, it rhymes, but it's also absolutely true. If you plan on riding for more than 5 minutes from your driveway, you need some essentials. A DOT-approved ECE rated helmet, a jacket that's armored, abrasion resistant, breathable, and yes, probably black. For some reason, 80% of motorcycle jackets come in black or charcoal. But you do have some options here, textile, leather, or even mesh shirts. But you're gonna drop anywhere from $120 to $600. And your instinct in a crash is to reach out and catch yourself. So if you like having palms, buy some real motorcycle gloves, anywhere from $40 to $200. And never cheap out here, folks. Cheap gloves are basically leather socks, plus boots. And no, your sneakers don't count, even if they're rugged. Motorcycle boots have reinforced ankle protection, oil-resistant soles, shifter pads, and actual structure to prevent twisting or snapping. Expect to pay between $100 to $300, depending on style. For pants, you want to look for armored riding pants, or at the very least, Kevlar-lined jeans with CE pads. In a slide, plain denim's going to rip away from your body like toilet paper and may fuse to your leg like a wet tortilla. So budget about $120 to $500 for that. The pants, not the wet tortilla. So just for your essential gear, you're looking at between $1,000 and $2,000. Now let that sink in. Before you even start the bike, you've dropped a couple grand on safety equipment. And that's not even considering yet the non-essentials, like rain gear or a Bluetooth comm system, maybe a tank bag or a tail bag. And if you really want to get crazy on the safety gear, you might invest in an airbag vest. And trust me, after freezing your eyebrows off in early spring, you might want to be investing in heated gear, and that ain't cheap. Suddenly, you're looking at another $2 grand in nice to haves. And here's the kicker, gear wears out. It's not a one-time purchase. And cheap gear wears out even faster. Also, seasons change, so you may end up wanting winter and summer setups eventually. Buying motorcycle gear is kind of like becoming Batman. You start off with one tool belt and a cape, then suddenly you've got climate-specific suits, Bluetooth in your cowl, a backup mask, and heated gauntlets. Except, unlike Batman, you're probably not a billionaire. And Alfred didn't even bring a coffee. There's a common myth that motorcycles are cheaper to insure than cars, and technically that's sometimes true. If you're over 30, have a clean record, live in a quiet zip code, ride a cruiser or a standard, and have full gear and pass the safety course, and if the bike has less horsepower than a leaf blower. But if you're under 25, ride a sport bike, live in the city, or have any points on your license, then congratulations, you're now an insurance company's definition of a high-risk investment. So here's what you'll typically see in a motorcycle insurance quote. Liability covers damage you do to other people, and it's the minimum required by law in most places. It's cheap, but it only protects them, not you. Comprehensive covers things like theft, fire, flood, or random acts of vandalism by raccoons. It's helpful if your bike lives outside or near wildlife. Collision covers damage to your bike if you hit something. It's expensive, but useful if you ride often or crash occasionally. Track days. Uninsured or underinsured motorist covers you if the person that hits you does not have insurance, and you would be amazed how often that happens. You can always opt for additional things like roadside assistance or medical payments to cover your medical bills, because as bad as they are, hospital burritos are not free. If you're a middle-aged cruiser guy in the suburbs with a clean record, you're probably looking at maybe $400 to $600 a year for full coverage. If you're a commuter in an urban zip code on a Cowie Z400, and maybe you had one speeding ticket a couple years ago, you're edging up towards $700 to $1,100 per year. And if you're a 22-year-old sport bike rookie with an R6 as your first bike, live downtown, and already have 2 points on your license, and no safety course, you win the Insurance Olympics, with full coverage being anywhere between $1,800 to $3,200 a year. Basically a second rent payment, because insurance companies look at you and they see wheelies and incoming hospital bills. And obviously, a lot of things can affect your rate. Your age, the bike type, your zip code, and your driving record, even your credit score. Yes, insurance companies absolutely look at this. Taking a safety course can shave off 10%, so seriously consider it. And where you store it even matters too. Garage kept bikes are less risky, so you can consider all these things when thinking about how to lower your rate without selling a kidney. The most effective and least practiced way to lower your rate? Don't crash. Now maybe you're tempted to just carry liability insurance and call it a day. But think hard. What if somebody totals your bike and just drives off? What if a deer hits you? What if you low side into a guardrail on a rainy day? Motorcycle accidents get expensive fast, even for slow-moving crashes. A bent frame and a cracked fairing can total a $10,000 bike instantly. And without full coverage, your cheap ride just became an expensive yard ornament. All right, so you got the bike, you're geared up, your insurance is locked in, and now you're ready to ride off into the sunset, right? Not so fast, because now comes the part that separates the riders from the garage philosophers: maintenance. Yep, keeping your bike running safe and happy is a full-time relationship. And unlike a car, it's not the kind of relationship that you can ghost for 6 months and then just hope it all works out when you show up again. There's a lot of everyday things you need to do, or pay someone else to do. Like oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, or sooner for high-performance bikes. This is something you can definitely save on if you learn to do it yourself, like $40 versus $160 at a shop. Chain and sprocket kits are going to run you anywhere from $150 to $300, and brake pads, $40 to $100 plus labor. Again, if you feel confident, learn to do this yourself, because mechanics love charging you $150 to unscrew 2 bolts. And tires are a big one. You're typically going to get 3,000 to 5,000 miles out of a sport bike tire versus maybe 6,000 to 12,000 miles for a cruiser or an ADV. And expect to pay about $500 installed for a pair. And high-end tires, even more. And don't skip this one. If your tire looks like a race slick and you're not on a racetrack, you're about to meet asphalt in a very intimate way. If you ride regularly, you're going to go through a lot of tires. So much so that you'll start to think your bike is chewing on them at night just for fun. And you'll need to replace batteries, do valve adjustments, and coolant, brake fluid, fork oil, they all need to be flushed or replaced about every 2 to 3 years. Clutch cables, spark plugs, air filters, wheel bearings, gaskets, seals. It varies wildly, but stuff wears out over time and you're gonna have to replace it. It's not if, it's when. Welcome to motorcycle ownership. If you're handy with tools and patient with YouTube tutorials, then you can save hundreds here, maybe even thousands by doing your own maintenance. But if you go to the dealer for everything, it's gonna hurt. Now, that's a lot of variables, but if you're following along here, we're already up to another $1,000 or $2,000 in maintenance costs. And more if you ride really hard. Maybe a little less if you do some of your own maintenance. Here's the harsh reality. Motorcycles require more frequent maintenance than cars. They wear out consumables faster, and they're less forgiving if you skip stuff. Owning a bike is cool, absolutely, and fun, but low cost? Not even close. In full transparency, over the last year, I've had to replace a notched steering column, leaking fork seals, a couple of oil changes, brake pads, multiple tires. All told, I spent well over $1,700 over the course of the year, and most of that stuff was unexpected. And if you're still tallying right now, then we're already up to about $6,200 for the year. $8,600 if you're making that $200 a month payment. All right, let's talk about mods. You know, that this will be my last one lie that we constantly tell ourselves. Because once the bike's in your garage, that's when the real temptation begins. It starts innocently enough. You don't like your stock mirrors. You want a louder exhaust, maybe a more comfortable seat, a phone mount, a USB port. Oh, and hey, those levers are on sale. And before you know it, you spent more on upgrades than the bike originally cost. Bikes are a blank canvas, and there's nothing more fun than making one your own with its own personal touches. But those touches add up. Some mods genuinely make riding safer or more enjoyable. Better suspension makes cornering safer and smoother. Luggage systems turn a weekend cruiser into a long-haul machine. And brake upgrades can save your life, literally. But others are total vanity projects. Underglow lights, custom paint, skull-shaped turn signals, anything with flames that aren't actually flames. And hey, no judgment. If it makes you love your bike more, I say go for it. Just maybe don't expect to get that money back at resale. And be wary of the useless mods. Everybody has that one story about a mod that seemed genius at the time, but ended up being a total waste of money. Case in point, I spent hundreds on some Arlen-esque cat's eye mirrors. They look badass, but the left one won't stay tightened, and no matter how you position yourself or them, you're moving your head and body to get a glimpse behind you. Great for abstract art. Not great for checking if you're being tailgated. And here's the real kicker. Not only do most mods not add a lot of resale value, some can actually hurt it, especially weird and polarizing aesthetic mods. Buyers usually prefer a stock bike or one with tasteful, reversible mods. So if you're modding for you, awesome. But don't expect someone to pay more because you decided to switch out your foot pegs and add a tank decal of a flaming octopus. And if you want those mods covered, that's going to be extra insurance on top of everything else. Case in point, I had the mod bug really bad on the first cruiser I ever bought. Over the years, I put way over $4,000 worth of mods on it. And I had extra insurance to cover it. And when that bike ended up being in a wreck, I was fortunate enough that I was anal retentive enough to have all of those mods documented, because insurance will require it, and usually with pictures. There's nothing quite like pulling into the gas station, filling up your tank, and seeing $9.48 on the total. It feels like you just scammed the oil companies. Meanwhile, the guy filling up his truck next to you is crying into his $147 diesel receipt. But before you go celebrating, let's talk about what those fuel savings really look like over time. Let's say you ride 6,000 miles per year. Your bike gets 42 miles a gallon. Gas is $4 per premium, so you use 143 gallons in a year. That's $570 for the whole year. Now compare that to an economy car going the same 6,000 miles, but at 28 miles a gallon using regular gas that's only $350. That costs $750 a year. Yay, savings! You saved $180 for the whole year. That's one back tire and maybe a burger combo meal. But wait, that $180 in fuel savings, yeah, that's going to get obliterated by more frequent maintenance costs, higher tire replacement costs, more frequent oil changes, the cost of your gear, insurance differences, and that last mod that you insisted you had to have. But let's say this clearly. There are instances where a motorcycle can absolutely be a cost-effective option compared to a car. Like say you ride a small displacement commuter bike and do all of your own maintenance. But generally speaking, if you're thinking about buying a motorcycle instead of a car to save money, you're probably doing it wrong. So you got the bike and the gear and the insurance and the fuel. You're doing everything right. But now there's one tiny problem. Where the heck do you put it? Because unlike a car, you can't leave a motorcycle outside and expect it to age gracefully. They're not Labradors. They don't like the cold or the rain, the wind, the sun, the squirrels, or that local teenager who always wants to sit on it. A bike left in bad conditions will rust faster, corrode electricals, drain the battery, fade paint, and generally just degrade faster, even if you're not riding it. If you've got a garage, you're living the dream. Protection from weather, security from theft, easy access for maintenance and wrenching. A garage is motorcycle peace of mind. But not everybody has a garage. So now you're buying a quality bike cover, maybe a disc lock, a cover lock, and an anchor chain if there's something to lock it to. Another option is you can rent a storage unit, which will cost you anywhere from $60 to $150 a month, depending on your location. But bonus points for climate control. Your motorcycle is kind of like owning a pet tiger. It's beautiful, powerful, and completely unsuited for life outside unsupervised. Treat it like something you love, because if you don't, nature will. You know what's far less exciting than twisting the throttle on a windy road? Paperwork. Yeah, we all wish we could just buy the bike and ride off into the sunset like we're in the middle of a movie montage. But in the real world, you've got some legal boxes to check. Or you'll be riding straight into fines, impound fees, or the very awkward experience of getting pulled over with no license and trying to explain that you just needed some wind therapy. In the US and most countries, you need a motorcycle endorsement on your driver's license. That means taking a written knowledge test, passing a riding skills test, or taking an approved motorcycle safety course that waives the DMV skills test. And if you've never ridden before, the safety course is 100% worth it. You'll learn clutch control, emergency braking, swerving, and why the phrase "like riding a bike" is very different when the bike weighs 500 pounds and goes from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. Costs are going to vary by your state, but you're going to pay anywhere between $250 to $450 for your written test, MSF course, DMV riding test, and your license endorsement fee. Here in Georgia, the Harley Riding Academy new rider course will run you $300, which will get you out of the DMV road test. The best part? You learn how to not stall, panic brake, or drop the bike in front of the instructor, which, let's be honest, is the real win here. Some states even require new riders under 21 to have taken the course, which, frankly, should apply to everyone. Just like a car, your motorcycle needs a title, registration, and a license plate, and possibly inspection stickers or an emissions test. The total setup will run you anywhere from $60 to $250 depending on where you're at. And this part comes back every year like taxes or seasonal depression. Expect to pay about $100 every year to renew it all. You remember that shiny new bike you bought for $11,000? The one you swore you'd never sell. The one you financed over time and then lovingly upgraded with $2,000 worth of mods and an aftermarket seat that cradles your backside like a lazy boy. Well, the bad news is the market doesn't care. As a rule of thumb, a new motorcycle loses 15 to 30% of its value the moment you ride it off the lot. And after that, motorcycle value, especially certain types, can drop even faster than cars because they're often considered luxury items, not daily necessities. They get modified in ways that hurt resale, and new models are constantly being released every year. And mileage and condition matter a lot. That brand new R6 you bought for 12 grand, by year 5, it's worth 5. And that's assuming it's in good shape with no crashes and it's not creatively modded to look like a post-apocalyptic movie prop. And not all bikes depreciate equally. Generally speaking, Harleys hold their resale value pretty well, while Japanese sport bikes tend to drop like a rock. Ironically, beginner bikes tend to do pretty well on resale, And if your bike has weird mods, crash damage, no maintenance records, high mileage, especially for sport bikes, sketchy ownership history, or ugly color schemes or custom paint jobs, you could have a problem. Let me break this to you gently. You will not get all your money back. Not on the bike, not on the gear, and definitely not on the $600 universal saddlebag system that almost fit correctly. Motorcycles are not investments. They're fun money, lifestyle money, mental health money. If you can sell a bike after a few years and only lose 20 to 30% of what you put into it, you're doing great. Here's the thing about motorcycle ownership that nobody likes to talk about. Stuff breaks, not on schedule and not when you're expecting it. Usually when you're miles from home, halfway through a ride, and already late for something. Motorcycles don't just cost money when you buy them or ride them or maintain them. They also cost money when something random decides to quit, quietly, without warning, like a disgruntled coworker walking off mid-shift. Motorcycles are finely tuned, high-performance machines. That means tolerances are tighter, components are smaller and lighter, vibrations are more intense, and exposure to the elements is constant. Combine that with human error, road hazards, and sheer dumb luck, and surprise expenses are just part of the game. It's hard to quantify this one, but you're gonna face dead batteries, burnt out fuses, frayed wires, stator failures, bad regulators, coolant leaks, brake fluid weeps, fuel line dry rot, and the list goes on and on. And trust me, you haven't lived until your headlight starts to flicker going down the interstate at 75 miles an hour at night. And then there's crashes and drops. Let's be honest, it happens. Even a minor drop can cost hundreds for scratches, broken levers, bent pegs, or thousands for a cracked fairing, bent handlebars, or God forbid, frame or fork damage. And more if you have to have it towed. And pro tip here, frame sliders, crash bars, and engine guards are cheap insurance against a potential drop. It's also important to be careful what mods you put on your bike. That cheap LED strip, yeah, it just shorted out your fuse box. Sometimes the cheap mods end up costing more than a quality part. Bottom line, expect the unexpected. If you're riding regularly, set aside at least $500 a year for things that are gonna break, or wear out early, or just surprise you. And if you're riding hard, or off-road, or on track, or really long distances, then double it. You don't wanna be that guy at the shop telling them, I can't afford it right now, just park it. Because parked bikes don't make memories. It doesn't make you a pessimist to expect things to break. It makes you a realist with a wallet and an understanding of Murphy's Law. All right, gang, we have gone deep. We've talked about the upfront cost, the gear, the tires, the oil changes, the mods you swore you didn't need but somehow bought anyway, and all those surprises that show up like unwanted guests at your backyard barbecue. So let's recap the math. Now, it does depend on the type of bike you ride, how often you ride it, and whether you rent yourself or pay a shop. Not to mention how disciplined or impulsive you are with those upgrades. So instead of giving you one vague number, let's compare 3 common riders. Let's say you're a budget commuter on a 500cc standard bike. You ride maybe 5,000 miles a year. After everything we've talked about, you're probably looking at just under $2,000 a year. With low operating costs and smart choices, this is actually affordable, especially if you're riding instead of driving. Now let's say you're the average weekend warrior on a cruiser. You know, the kind who doesn't ride every day, but enjoys the hobby. You're not gonna go broke doing it, but it's far from cheap. You're looking at $3,000 a year. And then, if you're the rider who really packs on the miles, let's say 10,000 or more a year on your touring bike or your ADV, then you win the cost comparison contest at about $6,000 a year. This is the rider that lives on the saddle. They put on the miles. They need more gear, more service, and deal with more wear and tear. But you can also argue they get their money's worth in experience. These are some general examples, but if you've been keeping up with the tallying throughout this video, you know you could easily spend over $10,000 a year on bike gear and upkeep without even batting an eye, and more if you financed it. Motorcycle ownership is not always cheap transportation. It's more like accessible adrenaline. It's a lifestyle that costs real money, but it pays you back in miles, smiles, and memories. And when you factor in that mental reset, the stress relief, and the way riding makes you feel alive in a world that feels like a loop of gray Mondays sometimes, yeah, it's worth every penny. But knowing the cost of it up front, that's how you ride smart, not broke. For me, it's always been worth it. So now I want to hear from you. What is your annual cost of motorcycle ownership? What's the one cost you didn't see coming? Tell us all about it, because we are all in this two-wheeled madness together. And share this video with someone who thinks that $7,000 price tag is all it's going to cost them. And in the meantime, ride hard, stay salty, and we'll see you in the next one.